freaking Oswald fired 3 shots. 1 went through the windshield. That explains that. 2 of them hit. 1 through the neck, 1 through the head. That explains everything. I don't know why these crazy people are making up other scenarios, because
that's not how ballistics work.
1 shot through the head, corroborated by a military hospital autopsy.
When they what stories
are we making up?
They know it was Charles Harrison who shot.
Who is that?
Because he told them where he was shooting from. And so they know the shot came from him because it was going fucking virtually straight down.
Who are
Charles Harrison, the fucking one of the 12 hitmen hired to kill Kennedy. Welcome to Far Out with Faust, everybody. Believers versus Skeptics, episode 5. Today, we are tackling the truth about JFK. And I am joined once again by my resident skeptic / believer, depending
Don't
on which.
call me a believer. That's a dirty word.
I was thinking about it, man. It's like which side? It's so, you know what I mean? Like,
I believe the truth.
You could say that you are the believer because you believe you know what I'm saying? And you could say that I'm the skeptic because I don't. But what's cool about that is, it's in
There's
this episode.
Cool about believing the plot. Believe Faust.
Yeah, exactly. I'm saying the same thing to you. So, here we go, my friend Nick Lerman, everybody. We have put some serious time into this, and we're going to be coming at you with a lot of different angles. Hopefully, some things refreshing, and some things that you have not heard of or even contemplated before. But we're going to see. We've been going at it for a while. You know, I found this awesome quote by President John F. Kennedy that he said in 1962. Very ironically, he said, "We seek a free flow of information. We are not afraid to entrust the American people with unpleasant facts, foreign ideas, alien philosophies, and competitive values.
You're speaking my language.
For a nation that is afraid to let its people judge the truth and falsehood in an open market is a nation that is afraid of its people."
Amen.
Okay. First, let's establish the official accepted. When I say accepted, I mean the insisted upon narrative, the one you can find in Wikipedia, the one that they teach, to people, this nonsense. Okay, so the official and accepted narrative for all you youngsters out there tuning in was that JFK was assassinated on Friday, November 22nd, 1963. At 12:30 p.m. in Dallas, Texas, while he was riding through his presidential motorcade through Dealey Plaza. Now, if you've watched television or have the internet, you've probably seen the famous video of him driving around in that motorcade in the streets of Dallas. Okay, even teenagers, I'm sure, have been exposed to JFK and all that. But Kennedy, we were told, the official explanation was that he was shot 3 times from a nearby Texas school depository by Lee Harvey Oswald, very famous name. The motorcade was then rushed to Parkland Memorial Hospital, where Kennedy was pronounced dead about 30 minutes after the shooting. Okay. Now, Lee Harvey Oswald, a former U.S. Marine, was arrested by Dallas police. 70 minutes after the shooting, they had him. They had already somehow found a way to try him. Establish his guilt, and it was all over the news. They had got their guy. They had found the shooter, and
he killed someone.
2 days later, and they also accused him of killing Officer J.D. Tibbet, who was a Dallas PD. So in that 70 minutes or before, he found a way to murder a police officer. Now, 2 days later, on November 24th, 1963, as live television cameras were put in position to cover his transfer from city jail to county jail, surrounded by dozens of police officers, Oswald was very conveniently shot dead Not by a police officer or by some kind of disgruntled citizen who was heartbroken. No, he was shot to death by a man whose name was Jacob Rubenstein, also known as Jack Ruby, a well-documented and paid FBI informant / mafioso. Okay. Just, Ruby was hanging out in the basement. Cops were like, "What's up, Jack?" Because the Dallas PD was, let's just say a little crooked at the time, So he was there. He had favors that needed to be called in, and he just took care of Lee Harvey Oswald. Kennedy was taken to, Oswald, I mentioned that he was taken to Memorial Hospital. He died soon after, similar. Now, keep an ear out for Parkland Memorial Hospital, because that is the hospital that we're going to focus on. Now, ironically enough, Officer Jefferson Davis Tibbet, J.D. Tibbet, was also taken to Parkland Memorial Hospital. The funny thing about that was he was already deceased when they transferred him there, which the EMT workers noted was very strange. But this was, in the middle of a catastrophic event that was literally traumatizing the nation in real time. So, of course, only so many.
Tell us they switched out a body, Faust?
No, I'm just telling you. J.D. Tibbet was brought deceased first to Graceland and then transferred to Parkland, where everyone else went.
The officer who they say looked like JFK,
even though he was declared dead, they insisted that he be transferred to Parkland Memorial. Really strange.
Very strange.
The Methodist hospital staff, where he was initially brought, thought it was extremely odd. And they thought it was odd that the bullets seemed to be removed from his body on the way in this attempt to save him. But then they said he had to be transferred.
Can you remind them who Tibbet is?
Officer J.D. Tibbet.
The guy who
Lee Harvey Oswald was accused of also murdering. He was accused of murdering the president and
he ran away, right?
Yeah, apparently.
It wasn't apparently. This officer caught him. He's like, "Yo, what are you doing, you suspicious ass?"
No, that's not even remotely true. Lee Harvey Oswald was arrested while drinking a Coca-Cola in the lunchroom of the depository.
No, he wasn't. He was caught in the movie theater after running away after shooting this guy, wasn't he?
No, he was literally drinking a Coke in the lunchroom of the depository. Clueless.
Okay. Maybe I'm off. All right, keep going.
Maybe you're thinking of. Are you thinking of Lincoln's assassination?
No. No. Go on.
Okay. Anyway, interesting piece of information that came out. Just I'm gonna just throw this out here. We're gonna come back to it. Okay. It was recently discovered, only in the last 10 years, by a researcher, a professional researcher, brilliant guy, who that Tibbet's nickname in the Dallas PD, particularly in his younger years, was JFK, because he looked so remarkably like.
It was Dallas,
JFK.
actually.
Well, I heard it was JFK. I don't know where you got Dallas from, but anyway, there was a 10-month-long investigation by the, quote, Warren Commission. Now, for those of you who know me, know that commissions is where governments send the truth to die in the history of governments. Okay, so the Warren Commission concluded that Oswald assassinated Kennedy, that Oswald killed Tibbet, and he acted entirely alone, and that Jack Ruby had acted alone when he killed Oswald. End of list. They printed the Warren Commission, and you could buy it for $1 in every grocery store, every gas station, everywhere in America. You could buy the Warren Commission. Are you telling us
this was the new fiction novel put out by the government?
Talk about propaganda. They printed this thing like bird shit, and you could get it anywhere, right? They wanted everyone to know the story. Right? Now, following the broadcast of the Zapruder film, which was aired on national TV in 1975 for the first time, that changed the consensus of the American people. So more people started to see that the physics of the bullet striking JFK's head did not match with the story, right? And so, because you can see his head kind of being violently rocked backwards and to the left. after he was shot in the head. And
There
since
were 2 bullets. 3 were shot, 2 hit.
yeah, but only one hit him in the head. That's what I'm talking about.
And the other one hit him in the neck.
Yeah.
So his
Yeah.
head blew off when a rifle shot hit him in the head. You know when a bullet goes through a head and it's a powerful bullet, the head goes.
Yeah, I know. I know what a bullet does.
Here.
Yeah,
So,
we're gonna get into
so
physics.
why are we surprised?
Speaking
here?
of physics, okay. So, so the autopsy report and the official government insisted that Kennedy was shot not the way everyone saw him, not the way the video camera recorded him being shot.
All the shots came from the back.
But they insisted that Lee Harvey Oswald, acting alone from that floor of the depository, was the lone shooter. And so obviously where he was, he could have only been shot from that position. The problem is that everyone saw something different, and what happened was recorded. So here we go, right? We have a narrative. Does this sound familiar? We have a narrative being put out by officials, and we have the public and other scientists and people trying to get their voices heard, saying that's not possible. What you're saying is not physically possible. Can we go back and take a look at this? And once again, those people were not given a voice at the time. They weren't called to the Warren Commission.
They're not important.
Over and over. Listen.
If your grandma dies and some people are like, hey, look into her death, she did not have a heart attack, isn't it still your decision? Was it not Jackie's decision? What is suspicious about this?
What is suspicious about everything is suspicious about it. This is the biggest cover up in history.
No, but why should we listen to this group of people? Why should Jackie listen to this group of people who are saying, hey, investigate your husband's death, when she had already made the decision and was content with the report that was investigated? She understood he had been murdered.
I think that it was just very traumatic for the whole family, and that like any unexpected death, let alone a murder, they were anxious to try and get it behind them. But the problem is the narrative that they still insist on today is a literal physical impossibility. So why are we expected to believe that a lone gunman, who happened to be fatally shot and conveniently shot on live television in a basement full of police officers before he had a chance to breathe a word of his story? Why are we supposed to believe that? Everything about the story is absurd, right?
It's not. It's perfectly normal.
There's nothing normal about it. This was the first, and bear with me, because this is so important. This was the first time they did this. Now I'm going to lay it out for you guys. Stick with me and listen to the end, because you're going to notice the pattern begins here. Okay.
I will stick with you, Faust. I will stick with you,
Nick's
but I will
stick with
interrupt all the lies you tell these people. So don't you dare lead them down the wrong path, because we will find who lied to you and made you believe this horror.
We're gonna get into all. You'll have plenty of time. But why were we asked to dogmatically believe officials, and you're gonna notice a common thread here, because that common thread is gonna pop back up in every major event. All right, now listen to me. If you watch the last episode of Believers vs. Skeptics, our episode of The Truth About 9/11, then you'll have remembered that I showed you a direct lineage, a direct line between the burgeoning class of billionaire American financiers, bankers, oil tycoons, warmongers, the people who profited for years off the German Nazi war machine, who built it up, who were making money off both sides, and just reaped untold profits from the slave labor that they were funding Hitler to create, right?
And don't forget that I showed you guys that it was the same as them buying a stock or investing in any conglomerate that profited from multiple businesses and destroyed Faust's argument from every.
That's right. Nick insists it was just smart
with
business.
facts,
okay.
With evidence, with prophetic vision that
even though
recreated the scene of the
tens
crime.
of millions of people were killed in a war that they
My people,
prolonged.
my Jews.
That's right. The 6 million Jews were slaughtered. That's not even counting the soldiers. Okay, so this was the very first time, World War II, okay, that a massive transfer of wealth happened in our modern society, okay? The video I laid out showed you how Prescott Bush, the Harriman brothers, Allen Dulles, the Walkers, the Mellons, Henry Ford, the Rockefellers, of course, and the Rothschilds, who own it all, were all funding the Nazi Party. And how
Allegedly.
Not allegedly, documented, well documented. Okay, they funded off both sides of the war. This is what they learned in World War II. You always
through a
back
person,
both
through a
sides,
person, through a person.
and then you can't lose, right? Like the tanks from World War II. You know, both vehicles, the ones that the Americans were driving and the ones that the Germans were driving, they both were Ford. I mean, that's hard to believe, right? I mean, did you assumed the trucks used for, you know, those mile-long convoys in the German, that you see those German videos, that they had to have been German made, right?
The most popular car in America?
I did too.
Oh my God, that's shot. They invested in the most popular car in America?
Yeah, if you lifted up that hood, you would have seen that those were all Ford trucks. They had been built with express permission from Henry Ford, 4,000 miles away.
Shocking investment.
That's right. So, and for his service, did you know this? The Henry Ford was given the Grand Cross of the Eagle, which is the highest honor the Nazis can bestow upon a civilian. That's hard to believe.
Oh, did he go to Germany and accept his prize?
Hitler actually had a bust of Henry Ford in his office. He was so
he went
enamored.
And accepted because he supported the Nazis? Because, you know, you can give an award to anyone. North Korea can give you an award, pal. So it doesn't mean you're going to fly over there and say, yo, my people.
This is how fucking sold out Ford truly is. You know, I listen, I'm a big believer in buying American, but this just so you understand, this is Ford. This is Henry Ford. Okay. Henry Ford sued the American government in the 1950s because the United States military blew up their factories in Germany during World War II. And they fucking won. Okay. They won. And the US government.
You don't blow up a factory that belongs to an American corporation. Why are you blowing up their factory, man?
This is corporate America, everyone. All right.
This is legal. This is American law. Do not blow up my factory.
World War II was not what everyone was told it was. Okay. It was prolonged, enabled, and financed at the cost of tens of millions of lives by these powerful families who are the heads of the industries that they monopolize. All right. Every single war, they made so much money during World War II that there was no fucking way that they were going to sit back and allow that kind of influx to stop. So they did what any smart businessman does. They created the conditions to continue their income. And every single, you name it, terror attack, war, every catastrophe, every traumatic event that the American people have truly suffered through and has become ingrained in our consciousness has been orchestrated by these same families. And that's why you should care, because it's still going on. What did we just come through? What just happened? Okay. They'll never run out of scenarios to make you afraid, to make you think that you have to work for something, whatever it is.
So Faust, I agree with you partly here. And I think this is a great lesson for everyone listening, because something really interesting is if you guys actually look at the American stock market in the 3 to 12 months following the start of a war, Vietnam, Afghanistan, World War One, or I don't need, sorry, not World War One. I don't know if we had stock market there, but basically every major battle we've been involved in, the stock market actually rises a significant amount. Obviously, because we're spending a lot on defense, we're spending a lot on, people are getting ready, they're buying shit, right? So yes, but to say it's orchestrated by them is weird, because at the same time, you and I, we can buy a bunch of Lockheed Martin stock. We can buy a bunch of freaking Foster Farm stock. I don't know. We We can get General Electric, utilities. We can get ready for that future and also profit off of it. To say it's orchestrated by them, no, it's orchestrated by a crazy guy who wants a bunch of land and who wants to control the world economy.
That's but when you listen, there's a difference between even if we could, get $10 million and invest in Lockheed Martin's stocks, we could never turn the kind of profit that the people who run the company and who own the majority stock are making. We could never
totally.
I mean, we might be able to profit a little bit, but
they're in an industry where the world is always gonna turn to altercation. There's always gonna be problems.
But they make sure of that with weapons. What's happening right now in Russia?
That's safe to say,
and in Ukraine.
Exactly, but I don't think Lockheed Martin went out there and said, "Hey, I'm a Ukrainian, fuck Russia," with like secret.
No, they didn't. But who sowed the seeds of revolution in the Ukraine?
Russia.
It's the CIA. Flag operation. Fucking CIA, my friend. Watch you've seen the documentaries, Nick. I know the CIA was involved every step of the way. They're still what do you mean? You know what happened in 2014 in the Ukraine. That was masterminded by the CIA.
Putin has been wanting to meet for a while, so he came in and he's like, "Hey, we're taking this shit," and he took it.
But this is what people don't understand. People need to understand.
Wait, Faust. We're getting off topic.
We're going to go, but I have to set the stage, Nick. I have to set the stage so people understand the kind of people that we are dealing with here, who would pull something like this off, who have the power to pull something like this off. But anyway, listen, I just have to set the stage because you need to understand why it's important that what's going on, that you can see through the lies, because this was the first time that our government took the word science and used it as dogma. They said, don't believe your eyes. Don't believe what you know about physics. This is what happened. This was a, quote, magic bullet. Even though you see the head fly back and up, he was actually shot from. It's all nonsense. They're telling you literally not to believe your eyes because everything they're putting out is a fabrication. It's a fantasy, right? And you listen, we know it's human nature. Enough people start saying this is what happened, and people will say that. I guess that literally you can find interviews of people who were 20 feet from Kennedy, and they'll tell you what they saw, and then they'll say, but I guess I was wrong because I was told now that actually the shots came from the depository, even though they heard the shots come from the grassy knoll.
Because people obviously see people shot in the back of the head every day and they understand the physics that happened versus you obviously believe what a forensic expert tells you. That's how
in an ideal world, what the forensic expert would tell you is true, but in a corrupt world, then you have to take a good look at who's telling you and what and why. You can't just believe. Anyway, this was the first time this precedent was set, and it's still repeating. It repeated over and over and over. False flag, and then the cover. Or the actual event, and then the cover up. And the challenge for them is to make the evidence match whatever fucking atrocity they have committed, right? Like it was really cool to say that a plane crashed in Pennsylvania, except there was no plane parts. You know what I mean? So it's like, but don't look over there. Like we're supposed to believe that a bunch of people took over a plane. Like it's like everyone will focus on the heroes. It's all fucking. It's fantasy.
Can I ask you why they're lying to you? Why are these mystery people who run why is this new world order lying to you?
My friend, as long as you understand that you have something to work for, as long as you're not scratching your head and wondering why you're giving away half your fucking paycheck to a fucking morally bankrupt and completely failed criminal government.
I steal an identity and don't pay the taxes.
Well, you're smarter than most of them. Amazing. Let's get into JFK. Okay. I want you guys to understand that the intelligence community came from the corporate elite, part and parcel. That started in World War I. Okay. But it really became its own thing in after World War II. And specifically after they pulled off this, I should say right before they pulled it. J. Edgar Hoover created the FBI, the CIA was created. And basically these organizations, while their front was, to fight crime domestic and abroad, these organizations were working with and performing criminal activities. And they were doing whatever they had to do to secure, quote, America's interests, which were basically
all
corporate
the terrorists
interests.
they saved us from, the tens of thousands of attacks.
They were the terrorists, Nick. They were the terrorists.
Tell us more about it.
Just listen to this statement, okay? The only winners in war are the arms dealers, my friends. You can go back and apply that statement to every single war, every single event, and you will find out who's responsible. The arms dealers. Remember that. They're playing both sides. What's going on right now in the Ukraine? Only one party is making money off both. Anyway,
we're an imperialist country, Faust. We're responsible for it. We plant the people. We start the wars. That's true.
This is how fucking
That doesn't mean that we killed JFK.
Listen, this is how degenerate these people are. Okay, so Roosevelt died soon after World War II. Okay, and with him gone and fucking Hitler deceased, they didn't have, the things were started to be in question, right? But with Roosevelt gone, the biggest threat to their kind of continued existence was also gone.
About?
Well, I'm just going to
organization.
Well, not the mystery. I'm talking about the oil tycoon. I'm talking about the oligarch elite. Okay.
Okay. The elite.
So Prescott Bush was always looking ahead. Okay, and he needed to find another politician, a young politician that he could sponsor and own. Okay, so in true American fashion, Prescott Bush decided to advertise. Right now, he placed an ad. This is a true story. He placed an ad in the LA Times, which candidly explained what him and his fucking cronies were looking for. Okay, now here's exactly what the article said. And I quote, all right, a group of rich businessmen are seeking a young, ambitious, immoral, and most definitely malleable politician who might one day run for president. That is how ridiculously cynical they worded their ad, because they knew any fucking scoundrel, anybody who would actually ever dream of, applying for this position, any douchebag that would do that is just the kind of douchebag they're looking for. And they got it.
Wait, Faust, is this real?
This is real. This is real. Awesome. This happened. So I'll give you one guess. Some of you probably already know. They got an answer to this ad, and guess who it was? None other than Tricky Dick, Richard Nixon.
Who's Tricky Dick? Oh,
Richard Nixon.
No way.
Dude, I'm going to insert a picture right now. If you're watching this, look at the screen, because I'm going to insert a picture of Prescott Bush like slapping fucking Richard Nixon on his back after they went into business together when he answered this ad. Okay, this is a true story.
You can really line up the time of events that they put out this ad, Nixon responded, and then Nixon became president afterwards. Nixon
became president afterwards. We know that.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, you can actually connect that line of events definitively.
I mean, that's how I got the information. It's been connected.
Let's do this. I need some popcorn, man.
But not long after, so that picture was taken that you just saw in 1947. And it's not long after that Nixon was known to do business with a certain Jewish gangster who was working for Sam Giancarlo, whose name was Jack Ruby. But we'll get to that. Okay, Jack Ruby did a lot of work for Nixon, among others. Nixon was a fucking scoundrel. Anyway, to understand why these powers came against Kennedy, you have to understand the situation Kennedy put himself in. All right, it was not a good one. Him and his brother Bobby, they were playing both sides. They were getting very dirty, doing some things. But Kennedy, Jack, and Bobby always tried to take the moral high ground in the end, even if that meant hanging out the people they were, in business with to dry, and they fucked a lot of people over. So the Bay of Pigs, I'm sure some of you have heard of the Bay of Pigs. Kennedy had fired Allen Dulles. That name may sound familiar. He's also someone I spoke about.
Back?
Yeah.
I fire him too.
Because Allen Dulles went behind Kennedy's back and used the CIA as his own personal army and hit squad. And Kennedy found out, and he was livid. All right. That's when famously.
Let's correct that. Kennedy was already using them as a hit squad, and Dulles disagreed with the methods and took his own route to execute the mission. That's what happened.
What mission, Nick?
To take out Castro.
Dude, the only reason they wanted to take out Castro was because they had just purchased 33 million acres of land for their oil fields.
No, we wanted to take out Castro because oil was an important asset for the country as a whole, and we wanted to control the leader of the country so we could do business with them. That's why I agree with you that your guys definitely had a financial interest there. We're not disagreeing on that point. I'm saying our entire country had a financial interest in controlling and having friendly relations with the leader of this nation that controls a vast sum of oil that we can profit from through normal business means.
I mean, you could make that argument, but
that is the case. That is exactly what this is.
So
it's not like Kennedy was against this plan.
But listen, this was a huge catalyst. This was a big reckoning for Kennedy because he fired Allen Dulles. Allen Dulles is not a person who gets fired. So after the Bay of Pigs invasion, what happened was Kennedy did not support Allen Dulles' invasion, for lack of a better word, of fucking Cuba. And
he did. He just didn't support the methods.
And so Castro was never taken out. All right. Now, the United States and the military industrial complex was selling arms and training both Castro's men and the nationalists. They were training the communists and the nationalists. This is very common practice. In fact, you can basically trace it to every single war we've ever been in. The military industrial complex is going to profit off whoever we're fighting. This is just the way it goes. Okay. So when Kennedy pulled out, the $33 million the 33 million acres worth of land that was purchased.
Pull out completely. He pulled out of their operation.
Right. Exactly. He left them high and dry. Castro took the property back, and the company that they had formed, which was a colossal investment for a lot of well-known names, called Creighton CVOVT, oil exploration, was delisted from the stock exchange. Okay. They lost 30 billion in that venture. Now,
and who was a part of the venture?
Oh my God. Give
us the names.
So you had Jack Austin Creighton being a lifelong friend of Dulles, Allen Dulles, the guy who got fired.
And a senator, I believe.
You have the Bushes, of course. Let me see who else was in there. I have that list right here. Hold on.
There were other big names there, but Faust, here's the problem with this. 7 months ago, the US declassified new information about the JFK assassination, specifically about what was going on in Cuba at the time. In this declassification of documents, we got a new document that showed a plan for the different ways the CIA wanted to take out Castro. This was approved by Kennedy. Therefore, we can establish the fact that Kennedy already agreed with taking out Castro. And I'm going to say allegedly, this is my opinion, setting up a new leader they could control. Maybe it was letting natural course take out. But the point is they didn't want Castro there. That was proven with documents. So what you're saying is this group of people that shared the same motive as JFK, JFK wanted to take out Castro. He also wanted to control the leader in Cuba. Why would they kill him? What's the point of killing JFK? They share the motivation. All you're doing by killing JFK is ensuring that Castro takes control of the country.
So I just told you that he fired Allen Dulles. Okay. He was warned that our agencies were now out of our control. Ike told him on his way out, Ike talked about the military industrial complex in that famous speech. Well, he also warned Kennedy that the FBI and the CIA were doing their own thing, and he had no control of them anymore, and they weren't answering to anyone, and they were spending and making large amounts of money off the record. And Kennedy,
they can say what they want. He can still fire them. Still had ultimate control.
Well, that's one of the reasons why they wanted to kill him. So Kennedy, do you remember, everyone I think remembers Kennedy very famously saying, I'll smash the CIA into 1,000 pieces. I'll scatter them to the four winds. He was so livid about the Bay of Pigs that he said that, and he meant it. And he had started to take plans very, very quietly to disassemble the CIA and the FBI because of how corrupt both agencies had become. And because he found out they were doing things like, training assassins, working with, actively working with the mafia, actively selling narcotics.
You say this corruption exists, if it's as powerful as you say, then it's very easy for them to convince a House or a Senate to not let him destroy them. That doesn't make any sense.
What I don't understand.
If they're as corrupt, if they're as powerful as you say, they can easily influence the group that can veto a president to stop their own destruction. That doesn't make sense. They don't need to kill him. They just need to convince 10 other white guys, hey, don't let him do this. Sure. Give us 100,000. Sure. Here's a briefcase.
Well,
boom,
the other
you're done. You don't
the last piece of the puzzle that you need to understand about why JFK was in a lot of hot water was that his father, very notorious criminal. He was a bootlegger. Joe Kennedy was as bad as any of these guys who I'm going to talk about. He was a scoundrel himself. And one of the reasons why John and Bobby kind of took such an opposite route was because they were determined to be the opposite of their father. Now, unfortunately, like any good criminal, bootlegger, gangster, Joe Kennedy used his sons as leverage throughout his time as, a bootlegger criminal. So his sons were a constant get out of jail free card. And eventually he made that prophecy come true. And there was a hit put out on him. So JFK had one of the most corrupt politicians in history, if not the most corrupt, as a vice president, LBJ. Absolutely as fucking scumbaggery as it gets. And
he's a pretty big scumbag.
I think
he wanted to have Jackie there to see her husband's body as he was sworn in. He's a pretty big piece of shit.
Yeah, and he was smiling.
He was smiling.
Just couldn't help but smile. I mean, he was in on it.
He wasn't, but he profited big.
In more ways than one. So that's the final piece of the puzzle. Kennedy fucked over the mafia. He got his dad off the hit list. He was, having drinks and meeting with some of the most notorious gangsters of the day. And then after he got his dad out of trouble, they said, hey, this guy's all right. We got him. You know what I mean? We got LBJ right next to him. He just fucking did all this shit to get his dad off the list. He's nothing to worry about. He's with us. What did Bobby Kennedy do? He fucking went after the mob. He started taking them down. He fucked over the mafia. That is a big no-no. That alone. You
want us to assume that the mafia has even a fraction of the power of the Secret Service and even has a tiny amount of ability in Dallas to
absolutely.
They flew. I'll admit that they could control, let's say, a Dallas police department. I totally agree with that. Did. That's very possible. Do you think that I could see it. That is a possible argument that they could get someone to turn their head as someone walked into a building and set up a gun. Sure. Do I think they did it? Hell to the no, because I don't think that you could even prove that he got his dad off by talking to the mafia. All we have bail, but show this to me.
There's all we have basically is the word of a bunch of fucking gangsters. You know what I'm saying? Like these guys wrote books.
You know what, Faust? I'm sorry, I have to correct myself. I will actually believe you on this because I remember finding out that an Irish gangster was the one who went in and got JFK his casket when because basically I remember they broke his first casket due to some damage, and they actually.
Is that what you heard? We're gonna get into the casket.
We'll get into the casket, but
now that the stage is set. Okay, now that the stage is set, now you understand that this.
They don't understand. They just heard your side of things.
I wanted you to understand how you have enough. You need a lot of people on the ground to pull this off. Okay.
Yeah,
To
definitely.
pull something like this off and then control the amount of people and the narratives, and it's too much, which is why they think they got away with it. But everybody with 2 cents of logic knows that this is not, it could not have been what they told us, at least not now. The scale of it and the extent of the depravity that this conspiracy goes down is very hard for most people to fathom. It gets gruesome. It's beyond disrespectful, but there are, what I'm going to show you, and I'm going to point out to you how you can, this is easily verifiable, is how the wounds sustained by Kennedy when he was shot, when he showed up in Dallas at the trauma unit right after he was shot, all the doctors who made a futile attempt to save his life recorded, as they had to, what they saw, the damage, the extensive damage that his body had been through, right? And you're going to see how his body, his whole body.
Sure.
So, and I'm going to point that out to you, and then I'm going to show you how there was, when they flew him from Dallas to Bethesda, Maryland, for his autopsy, how the body that showed up there, or the whatever it was, the wounds were completely different. They were in no way, shape, or form, by any record, the same wounds as what was on JFK's body in Dallas. We know from that forensics tell the tale. We've all seen forensic files. There's some of it's super exciting to think about the minutia of traces that we leave at a crime scene that could tie us to that crime. And we know that even as early as the 60s, that we could figure out how somebody was killed, what kind of bullet was killed, where the 60s, bullet came in.
Maybe like 40 years later, when like LiDAR technology was invented, 50 years later, maybe.
But even back then, they were good. They could tell
they
you.
just used some math that barely worked. If a fucking rock was flying through the air and hit the bullet, boom, all their math is suddenly off. You can't trust those guys. You trust the people who recreated the scene using LiDAR technology and precise physics years later.
I trust the people who examine the body, the actual
For
body.
Sure, I agree with you. They agree with me too. So, but let's go on.
Oh yeah, okay, whatever. So obviously they would need to have access to Secret Service. They would need to be able to control the body. And I'm going to show you some video that shows you how they were absolutely on top of all those things from the word go. They had a lot of money to throw around, and there's a lot of documentation of who they threw it to.
Well, I thought we're just talking about the body, so I want people to know what happened on the ground in Dallas. The facts, facts.
Here's the thing: there's so much evidence that Lee Harvey Oswald, it was not remotely either the only shooter, if he was a shooter at all. You know what I'm saying? He was literally.
Don't call it that. Don't call it evidence. Call it theories.
Testimony. So testimony. You could watch. There's a documentary in 1964 that is just literally one person after the next who was right there, who saw
source literally saw mental institution.
Saw people, one guy saw Frank Sturgis. He was an American mercenary, a CIA assassin who has gone on record numerous times saying that he was hired to kill Castro. He was also approached about domestic assassinations. He was definitely one of the shooters in Dallas at the time. We know
Another
he wasn't.
Guy saw a dragon made of peanuts.
We know he was in Dallas. Frank Sturgis was in Dallas at the time. Woody Harrelson's father was in Dallas at the time. He was an American mercenary.
Tell us about the Woody Harrelson theory.
No, not Woody Harrelson. His dad was an assassin.
His dad did not.
What?
Please, let's not get into that theory.
Listen, his dad was definitely one of the shooters. So was Frank Sturgis.
Not.
He absolutely was. Woody Harrelson's dad. The reason why Woody was so good in Natural Born Killer was because his dad was a natural born killer.
Guys, Google this theory. It'll make you laugh if you haven't heard it already.
You said you'd kill President Kennedy.
At the same time I said I had killed the judge, I said I had killed Kennedy. Well, do you believe Lee Harvey Oswald killed President Kennedy? We'll get back to that. Alone, without any aid from a rogue agency of the U.S. government, or at least a portion of that agency. I believe you're very naive if you do.
So anyway, but since we're talking about Lee Harvey Oswald being the shooter, which is a joke, because everyone who knew Lee knew he couldn't shoot for shit. Now,
how about all the people outside on the floor?
Let's just take 3 minutes.
And who saw him pointing his gun out the window? Who
Dude,
saw him?
That
take
wasn't
the
him,
shot?
dude.
The eyewitnesses.
So
the picture.
Just so you understand,
gun,
the shot that they said that he made, first of all, was a shot that they asked the 3 top marksmen at the time, the Warren Commission did, to recreate the
Bullshit.
shot, and they all failed. Okay,
Bullshit.
Mark Lane reported that in 1964.
You guys
He was covering the Warren Commission.
Mark Lane is the. Go on, Faust. I'm sorry.
Anyway, so this was a guy. His name was Sergeant Delgado. He was in the Marine Corps. He was actually friends with, Lee and knew Lee. And so I just want you to take 3 minutes and hear about his visit from the FBI. I'm going to share my screen. This is Sergeant Delgado on Lee and Lee's skills with a rifle, and also on his visit. I don't know. He was in the Marine Corps.
Okay, deception.
Let's hear what he has to deception. Shut up. Let's hear what he has to say.
Was Oswald interested in guns?
They say he was a gun enthusiast, but I recall many instances where we stood inspections and he was constantly being gigged for having a dirty weapon and taking improper care of his weapon. He was always reminded when he had to clean the weapon. Never took it upon himself to do so.
Do you have personal knowledge
You have to clean a
of
weapon
Oswald's
one every
ability
500
with
shots.
a rifle?
At the range, he couldn't prove by me that he was a good shot. As
He
any
was a bad
person who's ever
shot.
served in the armed forces could tell you,
Listen.
there's a part in the qualification that calls for rapid firing. This is done with 10 shots, 8 in a clip and 2 that you load by hand. They give you maybe 30 or 45 seconds to be exact to fire these 10 rounds. Well, when you fire these, then you stand away from your firing position until everyone has finished firing. Then the targets are brought down and scored. The targets are run back up and they're disked for the number that you have hit, 5s, 4s, 3s, or misses. Well, in Oswald's particular case, it was quite funny to look at, because he would get a couple of discs. Maybe out of the possible 10, he'll get 2 or 3 Maggie's drawers. Now, these are a red flag that's on a long pole, and this is run from left to right on the target itself. And you don't see this on the firing line too often, not the Marine firing line. And that's you can't help but notice it when you're seeing discs around some of the things coming up and down, and farther on down the line you see a flag waving. Well, that was going to catch your eye anyway. And we thought it was funny that Oswald was getting these Maggie's drawers so rapidly, one after the other. And this is why I can't think that he would be a good shot, because a good shot doesn't pull this. He'll pull a 3, but he won't pull a Maggie's drawer. It's a complete miss.
How did the FBI react to your statement that Oswald was a poor shot?
They tried to
Can you
disprove
pause it
this.
for a second, Faust?
They did not like the idea
Pause
when
for
I
1
came up
second.
with the statement that Oswald, as far as I knew, Oswald was a very poor shot.
Do you feel that the agents of the FBI actually tried to get you to change your statement that Oswald was a poor shot?
Yes, sir, I definitely do.
Now, why would they do that?
So let me explain it to our fans, everyone. So let's talk about more people and opinions that don't matter. I want you guys to take 2 minutes of your day to just Google recreations of the Kennedy shot, and you'll see 100 or so, I want to say like 100,000 or so people who go out and recreate the shot. Like, I could go on a dating app right now, find any person I match with, say, hey, you want to go to a date to a shooting range? Go for the first time, teach her how to hold a rifle, and she could pull off this shot. That's how easy this shot is, Faust. You don't understand. And I want you guys, this isn't even my opinion. I want you guys to just go on YouTube and type recreating the Kennedy shot with an amateur. Something like that.
Listen,
you'll find hundreds of people.
If you have ever shot a rifle.
Faust, I have. I'm saying this because I went last week and I used a 1940s German rifle, and I was aiming at a target. I probably hit 28 out of 30 shots on target. I'm specifically, for this edit, Faust, I'm going to go to the same gun club, find the same gun with the same caliber bullet, and I'm going to hit every target right at the same range, like a amateur, just to show you how right I am.
Listen, everything Nick just said. I have fired a rifle. I've fired a rifle at moving objects before.
It must be a horrible shot.
And it's not like shooting a shotgun. It's very difficult to hit a moving object with a rifle.
I agree.
Let alone a small object moving with another. You know
what? You're right. I was too confident. I take it back. It is very difficult. It's not difficult for someone who's trained. I probably couldn't do it, but you will find people who have.
Marksmen are trained in a way that allows them to be perfect, right? So, and that's why they creep. That's why they lay down, because they have to be absolutely still. And on most of the time, they wait for their subject, whatever there is in their scope, to stop moving. It is very rare that a sniper has to take a shot on a moving object, because that's not exactly what a marksman is trained to do. Marksman is trained to wait, and when that object stops or at least slows the fuck down, that's when they take the shot. But even the greatest marksman, there's so much to account for, especially if you're shooting from a building. Targets. No, you can train for a moving target, but you can't account for, when you're shooting
like random movements.
If you're let's say you're shooting from the roof of a building, and it's a hot Dallas day. Well, you don't know how much the bullet's going to drop. You can't account for the wind. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you're dealing with
it wouldn't matter because of the proximity. You're not like 200, 300 meters away. He was close enough where it was an easy enough shot for like a news anchor I saw do this exact shot and pull it off.
I mean, I think that
because a rifle's a lot easier. Like, it's not so difficult at that range. It was.
What was the feet?
What?
How many feet?
I think it was 50 meters. Let me double check right now, just to correct myself.
That's almost 200 feet, at least. That's quite a distance, dude. So if you don't know about ballistics and guns, even at 200 feet with almost any rifle, you're going to have to aim about an inch above the bullseye of a total stationary target.
81 meters.
81 meters, dude. That is not an amateur shot in any way, shape, or form. That is a marksman shot.
The limousine was moving at 11 miles an hour at a straight, relative to the building. If it's moving at 11 miles an hour, it's essentially like it's not moving at all, because you're just aiming at the back of his head going straight on. So It was the perfect. You know what? I agree with you. It's very strange that spot in particular wasn't well defended. And I agree with you that, yeah, definitely someone could have paid someone off to look the other way as he got in the building. That spot was a very easy shot. I will not agree that it was a difficult shot. I honestly believe I could have pulled it off. Not that I would kill a president, anyone, but I think I could have. But It wasn't
I
hard.
think you underestimate, like, if you've ever gone deer
No,
hunting.
I'm nice.
You
I'm
know,
like,
like what happens the moment something gets in front of your scope is your adrenaline kicks in.
Not me. I'm calm as a whistle. I'm just like,
Yeah, right.
Whistles aren't calm, but I am calm as one.
So, but what happened? You know what I'm saying? Like, how did they pull this off, and how did they get people
They didn't. It was
to
one
believe
guy.
it? Right. So I'm going to point you in the direction of, the forensics, which don't in any way, shape, or form add up. That work has been done. It's been proven that the body and the chain of command was completely broken. Okay, so
proven by nobody. The official report is all proven.
Listen, that is not true. Okay,
it is true.
Now,
officially,
the latest truth,
the latest truth confirms it too.
Okay, let me just read this to you guys, because
tell us your lies. Tell us your lies.
It's true that there was a total fiasco in Maryland when that body got back. I mean, to say it was a circus is not doing it justice. You're right. Quote, decoy ambulance. I mean, the shit show was on. They had a cover up that they needed, and they didn't have
not a cover up. They had a president's body that they're trying to get away from crazy people and potentially
crazy people what are the crazy people want to do, Nick? Grab the corpse and have their way with it? Why would anyone care at that point?
It doesn't matter why. It matters that it's the Secret Service's job to prevent all potential threats, even if it's the body. They don't need a reason to act logically. They need a reason to prepare for any scenario. So that makes perfect sense.
Okay, so let me just tell you what a fucking fiasco it was. All right.
No, I agree. It was the fiasco, definitely.
The November 26, 1963 report, Sergeant Roger E. Boyajian, I don't know, he was a United States Marine Corps member, and he was the NCO in charge of the Marine Corps barracks security detail at the Bethesda morgue on November 22nd, 1963. Now, this is one of the biggest smoking guns that you need to understand, because you're going to see how everything that they base their defense of their narrative on is fraud. And it starts right here. Petty officer named Dennis David stated that the president's body arrived at the morgue loading dock in a cheap aluminum shipping casket that was transported by a black hearse filled with men with suits at between 6:40 and 6:45 p.m. prior to the arrival of Jackie Kennedy and the Dallas casket that was in the Andrews motorcade. Okay, that's the casket.
It was bronze, but
Kennedy's body was supposed to be in. Okay, now Roger Boyajian, a Marine Corps sergeant, wrote an after-action report. Okay, after the day after the president's funeral, which indicated that the president's casket arrived at 6:35 p.m. This corroborates Dennis David's recollection that the president's body arrived prior to the Andrews motorcade and well before the Dallas casket, the shiny one, first entered the morgue at 7:17 p.m. This report also indicates that the Navy and Secret Service officials were in possession of the president's body at the morgue over 90 minutes prior to the start of the autopsy. And it's proof that the Dallas casket in Jackie Kennedy's gray Navy ambulance was completely fucking empty when it arrived in front of the Naval Hospital in Maryland just prior to 7 p.m. Okay. And it was still empty when it was delivered to the morgue. 6:35 p.m., the cheap aluminum casket showed up. Okay. We have that report. That's a fact. That was Dennis David's report. So remember that name. Okay. Now at 7:15, the bronze casket was delivered. Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It was taken into the morgue by 4 federal agents. Okay. That's been corroborated and confirmed. All right.
That's when
there was also FBI agents James Siebert and Frank O'Neill. Now remember those 2 names. They become very important very shortly. Okay. Now
they're the guys who broke
8 p.m. This is 3 caskets. Can you imagine? This was 8 p.m. A third casket was delivered. It was the same bronze ceremonial viewing casket from Dallas that had entered earlier, except earlier it was fucking empty. Oops. What's going on? Sorry, wrong casket. I mean, can you imagine?
Yeah, they did mess up.
So this was taken to
That
the
was pretty
morgue this
funny.
time.
They
JFK's
actually
body
left him
had been
outside for 5 minutes.
JFK's body had been reintroduced to the casket by this time, and so they were able to begin the autopsy, the official autopsy. All right. Now, each time the bronze ceremonial viewing casket from Dallas was brought into the morgue, it was delivered through a loading dock. It's all done the same way. Okay. Now, the hold on one second.
They left him outside.
The good
for
thing
5
about
minutes.
all this was we know the times because they were trying. They kept trying to film it. So we have all the times when all these happens, and we have a lot of people who we can corroborate when each thing happened. Right.
Yeah.
So that was the only upshot of that fiasco is each time all this happened, it was on the record. Right. So, that all of that constitutes what is called a broken chain of custody. And so all this evidence being corroborated means that the president's body was not under guard and was not supervised the entire time. It because it was never to be removed from its ceremonial bronze casket. So the fact that it's been confirmed in that aluminum casket, that means that the everything that happened after Dallas, okay, starting in Bethesda, is fraud. Because the body could only have been moved to make it or manipulate it and rewrite history. But that's what they needed to do to stick to their one shooter, 3 shots narrative. Okay.
That is not true at all. Let me take the people through the next stage of events. Bronze casket comes in. Body is moved into the bronze casket. As soon as it's moved into the bronze casket, they end up hiring Joseph Gawker's sons. That's spelled Joseph Gawker, Gawkers sons. They're the people who did Roger Taft's funeral. They did another president. They're famous reconstructive surgeons. These guys come in. They use cotton along with other materials to reconstruct his brain and this part of his skull. They do an excellent job. It looks great. The problem is he ends up looking kind of like a model, like a wax figure, almost too perfect, essentially, for a guy that gets shot in the back of the head. Thereafter, the body's transported to the basically to the White House. In the White House, it's being looked over by 4 guards. Imagine like a funeral casket in the middle of a room. It's on this little stand, 4 guards on each corner of it. Robert Kennedy walks into the room. He goes in. The whole thing that Robert Kennedy was thinking about was Jackie at the time was saying, I don't want the casket open.
Jackie was saying that's not him. That doesn't look like him. It's not him.
I'll get to that. Robert Kennedy, his brother, and the state Secretary of Defense said, no, the president is a man of the people. They need to see his body. Jackie said, I honestly don't care. They can't see him like this. It's not him, like Faust said. So Robert Kennedy goes in the room. He dismisses the guards. This is the second time the chain of command is broken. He looks at the body and he's also feeling iffy about it. He brings in, I forgot the exact names, but he brings in 2 people who knew Kennedy well into the room. He's like, hey, guys, check out this body. Tell me what you think. Can the people of America see this? They look at the body and their exact words were like, no, honestly, that's not him. That's not even Kennedy. He doesn't even look like him. The problem was that to reconstruct the body, Joseph Gawker's and Sons, they did too good of a job and they ended up essentially making a wax figure. And Robert Kennedy and his friends had felt like if they showed this image of the president when the American public had already seen his head blown off, essentially, it would have weakened the nation, like almost like trying to hide a lie than accepting the truth. So they ended up accepting Jackie Kennedy's wishes, and Robert Kennedy's like, yeah, we're going to close the casket. The last time the casket was ever open was when Jackie Kennedy came to say her final goodbyes, and she cut a lock of her husband's hair and kept it for herself as the last time. It was never opened after that.
Too bad that wasn't her husband's hair. So I want to read to you the FBI report. written by
Jackie,
two
if
honest.
you're listening, let us test the hair.
Yeah,
Please.
exactly, dude. That's it. That's what man.
That's all we
So
need to
that
shut
that
Faust
would have been.
up. Come on.
It just depends
Give us
whether
the
she
truth.
got it in Dallas or Bethesda, because that would have been a true test. Now listen. So there was two FBI agents. God bless these two men. These were honest men. Okay, because you can't account for everybody.
Oh shit! You know they're frauds now.
So this was a big thing, and this is part of the reason why the fact that the Warren Commission left this out, and the fact that these two men they attempted to ignore them for so long, but there was some true investigative reporting being done, and
Don't call it true.
Well, this is true. Okay, so
Call it investigative reporting.
An FBI report that was later found by this incredible guy. You guys, and this dude's still alive and
Allegedly incredible.
So his name is where did it go?
Fraud.
David Lifton. He wrote a bestseller and a Pulitzer Prize nominee called Best Evidence. And man, this dude believed the narrative for the longest time, and then he just started to hear certain things. He was a physicist, and his thing was math and logic, and he was friends with a bunch of lawyers.
None
and he
of
was
either.
This dude is incredible. So he heard about these two FBI agents, and so he couldn't believe when he heard their interview. And he said, "Well, they must have made a record as being, they had to have made record of what happened, right?" So he found the record, and he was friends with some people on the Warren Commission, and he got it introduced. Of course, they squashed it because they had orders to. But in the FBI report written by the two agents who were at the Bethesda autopsy, in their opening statement, they said, and I quote, "It was apparent that there had been surgery of the head area, namely in the top of the skull." Now,
obviously, Joseph Gawker's and Sons, the reconstructive surgery. That's quite obvious.
No. This is at the autopsy. So where could they have done this?
At the military hospital. They did the autopsy. They had done it beforehand.
Yeah, that is a violation in every way. The autopsy was supposed. Listen, Nick, the autopsy is being performed for one reason: to examine the bullet, the body of Kennedy. It could not have been tampered with before the autopsy, because as I'm going to show you, the autopsy, the third version of it, because the first version was admittedly burned. That came out in court. He burned it. He wouldn't say why.
The only autopsy that happened started in the military hospital. That happened at Jackie Kennedy's request after denying Dr. Earl Rose's request.
There was 3 autopsy reports. I know that. Okay, so let's watch these two. This is the doctors.
Do you not have an answer for that truth?
I don't know what to say to that.
That's right.
The second wound was here in the throat.
This is Dr. Charles Crenshaw. He saw him in Dallas.
Opening, very small, 3 to 5 millimeters, about the size.
Whoa, they have that
finger.
photo. That's crazy. I didn't know that.
Again. I wanted to know and remember this the rest of my life. And the rest of my life, I will always know he was shot from the front.
Yeah, this guy sounds...
And also described the portion missing from the rear of Kennedy's head after the impact of the frangible bullet, which hit him in the right temple.
Shoots him in the head.
The bullet struck about where and passed about where?
From here through.
And taking out
the back or the occipital part.
Because he was shot in the neck first, and then the head.
This was gone.
Yeah.
Listen to what this guy says.
Wow.
Here in Dallas.
Guy sounds like he
died of a gunshot wound.
Soon made its way to the media. And this is why, at the very first press conference, Press Secretary Malcolm Kilduff correctly described the cause of death and direction of the shot.
He's like, think.
In order to find the
shot in
means
the back
with which
of the
to
head,
contradict this
think,
evidence,
you
the
dumbasses.
That 2 bodies were brought to the morgue separately whilst confusion reigned.
Okay, listen.
And it was now that the plotters themselves became confused by the mayhem they had created, because they left J.D. Tippett's cadaver in the wrong casket. It should have been switched and gone into the autopsy room in the large expensive casket used in Dallas.
This is the body switching I told you guys about.
Body in a bronze ceremonial casket on November 22nd, 1963 at Parkland Memorial Hospital.
Instead, mortuary technician Paul O'Connor received a coffin so dull and nondescript no one could believe it had been utilized to transport the body of a president.
It was a very plain casket, and when I say plain, I mean it was pinkish gray. It had pink and gray on the sides. There was nothing fancy about it as far as being bronze. It wasn't bronze.
The autopsy then became a farce the moment it began.
Listen.
While Siebert and O'Neill made their now famous and entirely correct observation that the body seemed to have undergone surgery prior to autopsy, mainly in the head area, as the autopsy proceeded, O'Connor revealed that Berkeley interfered constantly in the procedure, steering Humes away from the torso, where he would have found the holes made by Liddy. And while everyone in the room remained aghast and disturbed by the huge hole in the back of the head and absence of any brain matter, two porters O'Connor had never seen before.
They had Kennedy so surrounded, and they had this guy who's doing the autopsy.
You're saying he can direct people away from a hole
because
in his body?
Because it was JFK and because of his body, you know, they had one on each arm of his, and so he's trying to operate, and they have their back to the audience, and they're not letting him work, so and that's what he described.
No,
so it was a literal
Don't look over here.
farce.
There's nothing over here.
So understand that the autopsy report was fraudulent because the body was completely
different. It was done in the military hospital in the presence of his brother and wife.
So therefore, their entire defense.
Jackie Kennedy refused to leave the room covered in his blood because she refused to let anybody manage the body without her present. They tried to push her out, and she insisted. She said, "This is my husband." Covered in his blood, she walked in the room and denied everything Faust says. So when you hear these lies,
this is such nonsense, dude. Where do you get this shit from?
I want you to comment down below your anger at Faust's lies.
If you guys want to see, Nick, should I show him the Patrick Connolly version of what happened? It's pretty fascinating. It's pretty captivating. I mean,
you can show them any lies you want. We all know the truth, Faust. Me and my believers.
So check this out, guys. I'm going to share my screen one last time. I want to show you, this is, if you haven't seen Everything's a Rich Man's Trick, this is a big excerpt from it. But you know, I can't begin to summarize the way that this setup took place. But what he's done is taken, you know, hundreds of eyewitness testimony. He's taken dozens of novels, and he's put together the scenario based on the boiled down facts that remain. His theory was that there was a body switch. Now, I'm not sure about that because he thinks the body switch happened on Air Force 2. I think that's been proven wrong because of the timeline. We know now because there was a recent release just a few months ago of Air Force One's of the full, not the full transcript, but a much longer version of it. And so from that transcript, we have the time Air Force 2 landed. And it's a little different than Connolly thought. Now, I'm not saying that doesn't mean that there wasn't a body switch, because I still believe that they absolutely switched out and manipulated whatever body they had. That's why the caskets were in such disarray. Why else would the caskets be in such disarray? Why else would he be unrecognizable? Anyway, so
it says body switch, bullshit.
What does that mean?
It means that your story is a lie.
Okay. So this is a pretty awesome summary of what happened. And I think it's
awesome.
As close to accurate as you're going to get.
As close to accurate as a
let's see.
Butthole.
Okay. So part one.
The next morning, the president landed at Love Field and was led to his car by Governor John Connolly. As he is driven away, it is immediately apparent that something is wrong. As Secret Service agent Henry J. Rickber tries to take up his proper position on the president's limousine, holding on to these handles provided for the purpose, and is ordered to stand down by Emery Roberts.
Look at this.
Let's just look at Rickber's reaction again. He is quite clearly disgusted. Why aren't they letting him do his job?
Yeah, he was.
And as the car glides into Dallas, this basic pattern was established all over the plaza. A sniper next to a radio man, alongside a second marksman who could take over should the first want to back out at the last moment. Each team was then guarded by more assassins, mainly Cubans, who made sure no one interfered with each group. It all sounds quite professional, and the truth is, it was. Sam Giancana's spy in the Chicago police force, Richard Kane, was an electronics and wiretapping expert who spoke 5 languages. Up on the grassy knoll, with his childhood friend Charles Harrison, stood the diminutive Charles Frederick Rogers, a nuclear physicist who worked in seismology for Shell Oil. He was also friends with David Ferry and the Civil Air Patrol. Up in the Texas School Book Depository, LBJ's psychotic hitman Malcolm Wallace held a PhD and taught at the University of Texas. The Texas oilmen, mafia dons, merchant bankers and military industrialists had assembled the all-time dream team of professional killers.
Oh, all these people are in the city.
They were there to make absolutely certain their king died.
Live here.
And the 2 men who in later years would steal his crown, Richard Milhouse Nixon and George Herbert Walker Bush, smiled from the sidewalk as they exchanged winks with Jack Crichton. There was no way Kennedy could escape now, and they knew it.
Where's this wing?
Arranging his sniper's nest at the other end of the 6th floor,
Frank Sturgis.
Sturgis was the first to be spotted
Listen
by
to this.
Arnold Rowland.
I just looking around and we noticed a man up in the window, and I remarked to my wife, tried to point him out, and remarked that he must be a security guard, Secret Service agent.
The window then that you're referring to is on the opposite end of the building from where the main entrance to the building is.
Yes, it is on the other side of the building. And he had a rifle. It looked like a high-powered rifle because it had a scope which looked in relation to the size of the rifle to be a big scope.
A moment later, 15-year-old
what about that? That testimony alone?
He saw Howard. He
asked to be on the Warren Commission? Absolutely not. They didn't want to hear what he had to say.
Either he's talking about the actual shooter.
No, he's not. Lying. He knows where the shooter is. This was a different fucking window.
This was a different building. Then obviously he just wants some screen time on TV. We can't listen to that mental patient.
America, the home of the brave and the land of the free, was about to discover that it wasn't what it thought it was. As the president's car made the turn onto Houston, government agents who had sworn an oath to uphold their...
There's one more.
It was now that Abraham Zapruder pressed the trigger on his 8mm cine camera. Ever since that moment, the world has accepted that what he recorded was the definitive account of what really happened. What people must appreciate is that what they have just seen is not at all what really happened. Had you actually been there on the day, this is what you would have seen.
Watch the driver. Watch the speed of the car. He basically fucking stops. He lets the shot get off.
No, he doesn't. He
that's
when the president gets shot in the head.
Doesn't that look a great deal more suspicious?
Listen.
So just
it doesn't.
Exactly what
not at
did
all.
Happen.
What's suspicious about that?
If he didn't stop, that honest Secret Serviceman would not have been able to give chase and catch up. He had to slow down and stop.
What people must appreciate
pause.
is that what they have...
Pause. So let's understand one thing. The shot is coming from the back. The car right here, as we can see, is moving more or less on a straight track. Let's say it's a tiny bit slanted with that slight left turn that we're seeing here. So if I'm shooting, I'm a shooter, I'm perched right here. My shot from the back does not change whether or not we're turning. The speed they're driving at, 11.2 miles per hour, is that speed specifically because of the cameras that are watching. You need to be the president. You need to be strong. You need to be there for your nation. You can't move too quickly because specifically TV cameras are set up to.
This is not a TV camera. This is an 8mm.
But everyone has their cameras on him. This is on television. They can't drive so fast that a camera, like a TV camera operator has to change focus as he's driving. That's the reason for the speed. The Secret Service feels they're aware of all the locations. The speed here means nothing. Like, he did not slow down to make sure the president was shot.
Listen.
It's not at all what really happened. Had you actually been there on the day, this is what you would have seen.
He's already shot in the neck.
Yeah.
Did the governor turn?
Because the governor was shot as that neck bullet bounced.
And doesn't that look a great deal more suspicious?
No, listen.
Not at all.
Just exactly what did
happened.
happen during the 10 seconds that Bruder was filming.
He was shot in the neck, bounced off,
Dulles,
shot
Lansdale,
in the head.
and Attlee Phillips had tried to get over the problem of volley fire, blowing the president's head clean off by firing in 4 stages.
Firing a non-hollow heavy bullet
was meant to be a single shot by Charles Nicoletti into the back of Kennedy's head from the Daltex building some 40 yards behind. Had he succeeded, the plotters would have had the single assassin with 1 bullet story they wanted. But in his excitement, the mafia assassin squeezed the trigger too soon. His bullet ricocheted off the hard chrome sill of the limo's back seat and struck the curb beneath the overpass, sending up a sharp piece of concrete which scratched James Tague's face. Watch again. We clearly see how this little girl stops running and her gaze looks directly at where the shot originated and not
because she
up
heard
at the 6th floor of the depository.
Yeah, that's
and
true.
She's
Flimsy.
unsure
It was
where
now,
it came
now look
from.
at these two.
Umbrella Man
Look at these
took
two.
over.
Umbrella Man.
Standing right at the curbside, it was
I've
his
heard of
job,
Umbrella Man.
should the first shot miss,
Wait till you see who it is.
to give a clear visual signal. Target is not injured. The intelligence chiefs knew that if this situation occurred, Kennedy would now be moving rapidly away from the first sniper. They knew the only way to make sure of getting him was to fusillade the car.
Because if
so
you get shot, they have to speed up.
2 rifles tried to fire from directly in front at exactly the same time, to deceive witnesses into thinking there was only 1 shot.
You said you'd
kill President.
Listen, there's Woody's dad.
I said I had killed the judge. I said I had killed Kennedy. Well, do you believe Lee Harvey Oswald killed President Kennedy? We'll get back to that. Alone, without any aid from a rogue agency of the U.S. government, or at least a portion of that agency. I believe you're very naive if you do.
Harrelson's bullet
Honestly,
hit
that's
JFK in the
bullshit.
throat.
Harrison shot
Another
from there.
gunman hiding in a covert 50 yards away,
Listen, let him finish.
up in the embankment of the overpass, made the hole in the windscreen, which was later seen by Dr. Evalier Glanges.
The presidential limousine was there. Had been standing there for some time just watching the back of the emergency room. Talked to my friend next to me and said, "Look, there's a bullet hole in the windshield," and pointed it out to them. But it was very clear it was a through and through bullet hole through the windshield of the car from the front to the back.
As Kennedy emerges from behind the roadside, his distress is clear, while Governor Connolly remains composed. This single frame of the Zapruder film makes nonsense of the single bullet theory.
Yeah, let's
because
explain
it's quite
everything
clear
with
both
one
men
frame.
have not been struck at the same time.
Instead of the every other frame that
Kennedy has
disproves
now
us.
passed through 2 layers of fire and has not been hit in the head.
He hasn't been hit in the head yet.
To cover
Listen.
this eventuality, the assassins were given a simple instruction: fusillade the car with everything.
Last chance.
So that in the next few moments, the 5
What
remaining
kind of shit is
riflemen
this guy
fired,
smoking? I need
causing
some.
the Secret Service agent riding in the front
Listen to what
passenger
the Secret
seat,
Service
Roy
agent said.
Kellerman, to report a feeling like a jet sonic boom as the hail of bullets whistled into the car.
Hail.
It is now
3
more
bullets,
than 3 seconds.
3 seconds.
After Kennedy is hit in the throat, that Frank Sturgis misses his target altogether and blows out 5 inches of Governor Connolly's ribs.
Straight down.
Compressing his lungs and puffing his
That's
cheeks.
when the governor got.
With a bullet.
Can I explain that?
Which quite
Can I
clearly
explain that? Are you going to pause it?
At far.
All right, everyone. I want you to take 1 second just so that someone smarter than me can explain this to you. Look up forensics recreation of Kennedy assassination. You will find a video on a news site of a father-son forensics team that used LiDAR technology, which scanned the entire scene, recreated it with physics, and it showed that the weight of the bullet as it went through Kennedy's neck diverted the trajectory and hit the governor. That's specifically why the governor was hit. It wasn't a stray bullet or a stray shot from another angle. That's crazy. Freaking Oswald fired 3 shots. 1 went through the windshield. That explains that. 2 of them hit. 1 through the neck, 1 through the head. That explains everything. I don't know why these crazy people are making up other scenarios, because what are we looking at? We're all looking at the same thing.
Dude, that's not how ballistics work.
1 shot through the head, corroborated by a military hospital autopsy.
When they know, listen,
are we making up?
They know it was Charles Harrison who shot.
Who is that?
The dude we just saw, because he told them where he was shooting from. And so they know the shot came from him because it was going fucking virtually straight down.
Who are
Charles Harrison, the fucking one of the 12 hitmen hired to kill Kennedy.
What 12 hitmen? Where did these hitmen come from? We
all over the
that part
place.
in this conversation.
They drove in from Miami, as I just told you. They drove. They were
You're
flown
saying
in.
those 12 hitmen drove in with Sturgis and freaking Maria,
A lot of them did.
Marina
the
Lorenz.
2 guys whose name I told you to remember, you're about to see them again right now.
Too steep an angle to come from the other end of the depository. In almost the same instant, Eladio Del Valle hit the governor in the wrist, Weatherford fired into his thigh, and Nicoletti's second shot hit the chrome frame of the window.
Who are these people? What is the proof?
A moment later, the best marksman, Malcolm Wallace, shot Kennedy in his upper back.
This is when Kennedy got shot in the upper back.
And recorded by all the Secret
Guys,
Service
in the
men
comments,
in the
I will
columns.
obliterate this argument. I'll prove.
Look at him. Look at him get. This is when he gets shot in the back. Look.
Starts looking concerned. And yet, even now, there are no
his
obvious
body
signs that her
doesn't
husband,
violently
held
jerk from a
upright by his
gunshot,
back
guys,
brace,
from a rifle.
has been shot twice.
You must be literally.
He's been shot twice now.
But so far, failed to hit him in the head.
If you think that a person, a human being, would not violently jerk from a gunshot through their body, you must be stupid in the head. You must have been educated by donkeys in a field of
We've
grass.
seen him shot twice so far. Once
I have
in the
not
neck.
seen him shot even once. I did not see his body.
Oh no, he's holding his neck because he's choking on a chicken
No, he's
bone.
not. We have no proof of that. We have this British retard's freaking opinion that he's doing this. This is not true. This is one man's crazy opinion. I do not see evidence. I don't see blood. I don't see a reaction. I don't see the sound of a bullet of people reacting to that.
It is now that they play the ace up their sleeve. Here we can finally answer the riddle of where on an empty street you can hide a man with a rifle, and how he can manage to shoot a man speeding past him in a limousine. The answer is that he can't, and that is why the driver, William Greer, looked around twice to see whether Kennedy had been hit in the head, and when he saw he hadn't,
no, he didn't.
as dozens of witnesses, including police officers, confirmed, he stopped the car completely.
I have eyewitness testimony.
His orders was to slow down where the rest of the guys.
This is Greer, the driver of the presidential limousine.
Yeah, presidential limousine. Slow down almost to stop.
It is now that most people have been led to believe that Kennedy was shot in the head by Charles Boyd Harrelson, the sniper standing on the grassy knoll. This is not true. Because if we look at the angle of elevation of a shot from that area, it's obvious that a shot originating from above and right would have pushed Kennedy's head down
according
and
to
left.
Delusional nobody.
Whereas it's quite clear
no, it's not.
that his head is knocked
knocked up and back
to the left by the impact.
No.
So where did that bullet come from? Incredibly, the answer has lain hidden
Look,
in the most well-known and iconic image from the assassination of the motorcycle policeman heaving his bike onto its stand. Look now as we freeze frame him here.
He sees it, but
this
they're
is
gone
the
already.
moment when the whole world was looking up the hill toward the man who had fired from the grassy knoll, but that is not where the police officer
What do we
is
see?
looking.
Where are they looking?
Is looking
Who's
down
assuming that? I don't
into the
see
storm
shit.
drain and
We
begun
are
working
sure
to remove
of
all
this.
evidence useful to a forensic team.
Conspiracy
Deputy
theory
Sheriff
logic,
Buddy
I don't
Walters
fall for it.
is here
This
seen
is him
finding the
removing that bullet.
which struck in the grass near the manhole
Oh
cover.
yeah? Blurry
He hands
black
it on
head
to one of the fake FBI men, who pockets it. While this is going on,
yes,
Rogers,
other blurry
Harrelson,
hair guy.
Listen.
and E. Howard Hunt are discovered
All
hiding
of
in the
them.
boxcars of the train.
We're hiding
which
in
they
a
hoped would
boxcar.
be their getaway vehicle, until it's prevented from moving by railway dispatcher
This
and
dude's
key
a hero.
witness Lee Bowers.
They got
They
off,
are
of course.
photographed repeatedly.
But there's
as
Charles
they are
Harrison.
marched
There's
through
all these
Dallas
people who said
courthouse.
they were there,
And we can clearly see in this
being
picture
arrested
the
just
radio
for show.
receiver Hunt is
Honestly,
wearing in his right ear,
You make me believe,
which is identical to...
You make me believe with my Photoshop skills that I could literally manipulate the entire world to believe the history that I believe. Because you would not believe the shit I can make you believe with manipulating.
dude. This
I
is a
can make
fact.
you believe
There's an arrest
dragons are
record for
breathing
them. They
fire
were
to the
in
White
Dallas.
House, and
Why
the
were all
past
these
presidents
trained?
that fought them with
Nick,
swords?
Nick, these are trained assassins. They're mercenaries. What are they
According
all
to
doing
who?
in a fucking car in Dallas at the same time?
8 separate snipers firing 16
Makes a
shots
lot more sense.
in 4 separate
Oh!
stages.
16 shots in 4
They
stages.
tried to
Smells
make
good.
certain
I haven't had
of
so
killing
much
the
bullshit
president
in
by
one
hitting him in the
place
head
at one
and had
time.
failed abysmally. All the shots had missed the car completely in the head from just 15 feet away. It's very obvious setup.
Pause,
Okay,
pause,
anyway.
pause. No, guys, very important. So let's assume for let's go back to our activity, guys. We're closing our eyes. We're part of a unit. There's 11 hitmen or 8 hitmen.
Suck
I'm
my
not sure what you
unit.
said. There's 8 hitmen surrounding a president. Guys, seriously, please close your eyes. You're part of a unit of 8 hitmen. You're one of the hitmen. You have your gun pointed at the car. You're a professional. You've killed hundreds of people in your life. Let's assume you've killed like tens of people in your life. 50. I don't care. Your gun is pointed down, right? We're looking at this. A car is moving 11.2 miles an hour. This isn't difficult. Do you think that the Secret Service wouldn't assume this? Do you think that 9-10 different shooters would be able to get away with aiming at a president? Faust, besides the fact that the military hospital did the autopsy and saw 2 shots, neck, head, where are you going to invent these other shots, these other shooters from? What are their names? What are their motives?
You just got a bunch of their
Give us
names.
this story that J.K. Rowling wrote on an off alcoholic binge.
So listen, I want to say one last thing. I
want an answer.
I want to say that there is incredible bodies of work that have been done on this subject that I cannot begin to do justice.
All proven to be delusional idiots.
David Lifton's 1981 bestseller and Pulitzer Prize nominee, Best Evidence, is remarkable.
They made him a ton of money.
It's what really rewrote the book on. Well, look, if there's a complete discrepancy between the bodies that showed up in Dallas and the bodies that showed up in Maryland, then there had to have been tampering with evidence, and therefore, this notion that the autopsy is somehow legitimate is bunk. Okay, so there's also an awesome book
There's one
called
autopsy,
Inside
military
the
hospital in front of the brother and wife.
This book is literally filled with evidence that corroborates all the discrepancies, and it has photos.
What does corroborate mean to you? I know how to use Photoshop and write a few sentences.
This was
Faust,
way
I can
before
corroborate
Photoshop. This book is
that's a photo of a skull.
This book's incredible.
I can do anatomy.
So this, interestingly enough, this book was formed after Oliver Stone's movie JFK, which
Oh, really?
Ironically,
the movie that biased the world towards an assassination plot?
Yeah, and ironically, the CIA had a hand in it because it's misdirection. If they're looking at the grassy knoll, they're not looking at who is actually responsible. Anyway, this book, incredible, right? There's another book called Rush to Judgment by Mark Lane, and another one called Last Word.
Yeah, these books ready.
Listen, I want to thank once again the incredible Francis Richard Connolly, whose work I have borrowed, and I hope that one day I can have him on my podcast to talk about all the incredible work he's done. I want to thank.
I hope he comes too. I
want to thank David Lifton.
Into that interview,
David Lifton's work.
I want to ask him
best
why
evidence,
he wastes his life.
game-changing, incredible. His work on the autopsy report. I want to thank Douglas P. Horn, all these guys, the ones that are alive. Incredible work in the face of so much animosity and just pushback.
And honestly, whoever's watching right now, I want to thank all the authors that Faust mentioned for giving people the idea that this crazy delusional idea that could fuel such entertainment for anyone else who's watching.
Watch the 1964 documentary Rush to Judgment by Mark Lane if you want to see just how insane
these lies are.
The theory that they put out from the word go is. That documentary is just one person after the next, completely obliterating the narrative that they have sold. And don't forget, they're going to keep doing it. So be aware. Thank you guys, everyone who's stuck with us. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed this 5th episode of Believers vs. Skeptics. We brought our best. There's a lot to look into. This subject is a rabbit hole bigger than any I've ever encountered. Check out all those books I sent you guys. Remarkable work. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Nick, thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it.
Everyone.
We'll see you guys soon. Have a great weekend, everyone.
Keep not believing. Believers, they freaking suck.